Mega earthquake, 7.7. Northern Mariana Islands. Tsunami possibilities are definitely in effect. They first said it was a 7.9, but it's been downsized to 7.7. Major concerns of a tsunami. This quake is near the Northern Mariana Islands, and this is not good. And I tell you, the only good part about it, the only hope we got here, it was 132 miles deep, and that may save us from a mega tsunami in that area. But we don't know. It could very well happen in the next few hours. We're going to keep a close eye on it. Now, obviously, summer fire starts tonight here at our home church in Knox, Indiana. And so I just thought I'd step out real quick here into the car before we get things cranking up out there. But I wanted you guys to know, BP Earthwatch had warned us about this. He'd been warning us over those major solar flares. And here we are. All right, so I'll be back with more current world events and how they relate to Bible prophecy, but certainly this is a definite apocalyptic sign. And remember that one group tried to say this was the end of the world, July 29th. Well, that's not going to happen, but this sign is biblical from Matthew 24. Earthquakes, major quakes, and they're here. I'll be back. Give your life to Jesus Christ. Don't be left behind.
Disasters and extreme weather events continue to mount across the planet. It is becoming imperative that all of us keep ourselves abreast with what is happening. We should do it for our own benefit as well as those that we care about. We are now living in unpredictable times. If you follow the news, you would know just how much things are changing every day, almost to the point where it would make your head spin. In order to slow down that pace, it's important to explain what's happening one event at a time. Similar to placing the pieces of a puzzle into one uniform picture that can be easily recognized and identified. One of the pieces of the puzzle that has stirred a great deal of attention has to do with the intensity of seismic and volcanic activity in the Northern Hemisphere, especially along the Cascadia subduction zone, and most recently along the Aleutian Island chain in Alaska. One of the biggest volcanic news stories of this year concerns the vigorous and surprising eruption of the Bogoslav volcano in the Aleutian Islands. The volcano produced a large explosive eruption followed by a series of explosions on almost a daily basis. Some of these explosions have reached as high as 35,000 feet into the atmosphere. The highly explosive nature of these eruptions is likely rooted in the interaction between the new magma that is reaching the surface and the abundant seawater that it meets when it erupts. That water can quickly flash to steam and help fragment the magma into ash, thus adding to the explosivity of the eruption. This image shows how the continuous eruptions at Bogoslav have demolished much of its Aleutian Island home. Alaskan volcanoes have actually produced 1 or 2 eruptions per year since 1900. At least 20 catastrophic caldera-forming eruptions have occurred in the past 10,000 years. The awesome eruption of 1912 in the Katmai National Monument is the most recent. Alaska normally records 3,000 quakes monthly, but now seismologists have already reached the monthly average in just 10 days. This unusual sequence comprises, among others, 3 earthquakes larger than magnitude 6, 7 larger than magnitude 5, and 50 larger than magnitude 4. The highest number of quakes recorded statewide to date came in 2014, when more than 40,000 were detected, an astonishing number. Mount St. Helens is one of those volcanoes that is unsettled in 2017, resulting in an earthquake swarm. The USGS detected over 120 earthquakes over the last few days, all occurring 1 to 2 miles beneath the volcano. Here's a look back at the shocking devastation left in the wake of the Mount St. Helens eruption on May 18th of 1980. We often associate volcanic eruptions with the earthquakes that precede the eruption. But what do we know about megaquakes? The largest earthquake ever recorded by seismic instruments on this planet was a magnitude 9.5 earthquake in Chile on May 22nd of 1960. That earthquake occurred on a fault that is almost 1,000 miles long and 150 miles wide, dipping into the earth at a shallow angle. So we know that megaquakes have occurred in our past and are likely to happen again. In fact, earthquakes of various intensity are capable of striking any location at any time. But history shows they occur in the same general patterns over time, principally in 3 large zones of the Earth. One of those zones is referred to as the Circum-Pacific Seismic Belt, the world's greatest earthquake zone located along the rim of the Pacific Ocean, where 81% of the world's largest earthquakes occur. Another of those zones is referred to as the Alpide. It extends from Java to Sumatra, through the Himalayas, the Mediterranean, and then out into the Atlantic. This belt accounts for about 17% of the world's largest earthquakes, including some of the most destructive. The third prominent belt follows the submerged Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This would include the New Madrid fault line. The last significant earthquake to occur in this area was in 1811 and 1812, the most powerful earthquakes to hit the contiguous United States east of the Rocky Mountains in recorded history. In fact, the New Madrid earthquakes were so powerful that they were felt over nearly 1 million square miles. Not only did the quake reverse the flow of the Mississippi, but it damaged the sidewalks in Washington, D.C., and reportedly rang church bells in Boston. The New Madrid is the least understood seismic zone in the United States. It has often been said that another major earthquake in this zone represents a towering threat for which the central United States is almost entirely unprepared. I'm sure you've heard of the expression that if an earth-shattering catastrophe were to occur, that California would eventually fall off into the ocean. Well, that saying is a bit exaggerated. But California is moving horizontally north towards Alaska in a type of sliding motion. The dividing point is the San Andreas Fault System, which extends from the Salton Sea in the south to Cape Mendocino in the north. This 800-mile-long fault is the boundary between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. The Pacific Plate is moving to the northwest with respect to the North American Plate at approximately 2 inches per year. Now, at that rate, it would take some 15 million years for Los Angeles and San Francisco to be next-door neighbors. Unless, of course, a major pole shift were to occur, in which case the timeline could rapidly change. One important result of earthquakes that should be considered is that the earthquakes itself do not kill people. It is the buildings and the contents therein that cause deaths in seismically active regions. There has been larger earthquakes that have sustained very little damage and smaller ones that have. It all depends on the manner and the construction of the buildings and the materials that are being used. Some buildings were never meant to withstand violent shaking. Much depends on two variables: geology and engineering. From place to place, there are great differences in the geology at and below the ground surface. Different kinds of geology will do different things in earthquakes. For example, shaking at a site with soft sediments can last 3 times as long as shaking at a stable bedrock site, such as one composed of granite. Local soil conditions also play a role, as certain soils greatly amplify the shaking in an earthquake. The looser and thicker the soil is, the greater the energy movement will be. Fires are another major risk during earthquakes, as gas lines may be damaged, which could dramatically change life in America overnight. Earthquakes are a powerful force that can change landscapes and lifestyles. But there is something even more distressing that earthquakes are capable of doing. Media sources have reported that the Chilean earthquake of 2010 and the Japanese quake of 2011 were so powerful that they caused a shift or tilt in the Earth's axis. The Earth, which spins like a top as it orbits the Sun, has its tilt permanently altered. If we evaluate the simple facts involved with these two earthquakes, then the probability of an axis tilt comes into focus. The earthquake that unleashed the devastating tsunami on March 11th of 2011 moved the entire main island of Japan by 8 feet. It also shifted the Earth on its axis by nearly 4 inches. Scientists who are familiar with the phenomena say that the axis being altered has led to the shortening of the day by 1.8 milliseconds. The law of physics implies that the axis of rotation doesn't change relative to other stars as a result of an earthquake. So if you were looking at the Earth from a distance, you would not notice a change in the Earth's orbit or rotation. However, because an earthquake moves the material around within the Earth itself, the position of the rotation axis changes. We call this the sloshing of the Earth's mantle, in which the crust actually shifts. So if it appears that a shift of the Earth's axis took place in 2011, it is because we use points of reference on the Earth's surface to determine if this has occurred, where the probable cause is more accurately described as a shifting of everything on the Earth's surface. Here then is a look at the devastating effects of a mega earthquake and tsunami that hit the island of Japan on March 11th of 2011. The events that alter the dynamics of our planet are a part of the puzzle that, when put into place, help contribute to the overall picture of a planet in turmoil. But there are other pieces of the puzzle that are not so easy to identify or to put into place. One of those pieces has to do with the unexplained wave anomaly that is originating from Antarctica. This activity is quite apparent if you examine the recent morphed integrated microwave imagery, as shown here. In April, the same type of activity and patterns were being produced from the same region. Due to the coordinates from which the anomaly seems to be originating, many believe that the waves could, to a certain extent, be linked to the Princess Elizabeth Station. The station is situated at the base of figures that resemble pyramids. You might have heard a while back about a report, although controversial, that former astronaut Buzz Aldrin, who had recently visited Antarctica, had tweeted a photo of a pyramid, explaining in his own words that evil is here. So what did he mean by his Twitter statement? His words were removed shortly after they were posted. It appears that yet another mystery seems to be originating from the South Pole that has yet to be explained. Take a look at this screencast from May 25th. If you look to the left of South America on this map, you will notice that the waves appear to be emanating from Antarctica and moving out into the Pacific Ocean. If you follow the pattern of strange anomalies here, then it certainly looks like something is happening that none of us can fully explain. But as I have indicated many times, the truth is out there. We just have to search for it, and one day, very soon, hopefully, we will find it. One more thing I want to mention, because it has gotten a lot of attention over on our Facebook page. We recently received an image from one of our sky watchers who had this photo from February 26th, and he wanted to finally share it with our followers. It's a fairly remarkable capture of a planetary body that was briefly seen in the southeastern sky on that particular night. Now, as you may be aware, on that date, both Venus and Mars were located in the west-northwestern sky well above the horizon. Both were very visible, especially Venus, which was resembling the Star of Bethlehem with its extreme luminosity. Many of you commented how peculiar and strange Venus was looking before it transitioned to becoming the morning star sometime in March. There are a lot of viewers second-guessing about this photo, but it seems that no one can fully explain what this is. So I thought I would just get this out to you. You can go over to our Facebook page and follow the comments on this, as it really has garnered a lot of attention, as do all mysteries that are difficult to explain. So my friends,
first, we should start out by saying that the Third Reich never surrendered. Only Germany surrendered after World War II. The Third Reich went underground. Hitler instructed Bormann to take his treasure and hide it to create the Fourth Reich. That the secret government tied into the Fourth Reich, which is called Nazi International. And you know what? The Third Reich was just a dry run. That was just a trial run for Europe. The Fourth Reich is Nazi International Global. And we already know that there are quite a few ties here in America. I mean, Henry Ford was a Nazi sympathizer. Certainly Prescott Bush with Union Bank was funding them. Rockefellers had ties. I mean, there was a lot of Nazi sympathizers in America in the 1930s. So, this information about Bormann going missing, he was the money man. He was in control of billions of dollars at the end of World War II. Just goes missing. Well, what are they going to do with it? Well, first they've dug underground. They've created a series of underground bases that hardly anybody knows anything about, and especially out here in the West, we're riddled with underground bases that people don't know about. So how it leads into this modern age is, sure, the descendants may be in charge, or new people have been appointed. Although David Rockefeller is 97 years old, he's still very much a kingpin. And apparently they're taking anti-aging, like they have the technology to live much longer than we do.
It'd be nice to share that stuff.
It would be nice if they shared a lot of things. It would be nice if they actually cared for the human race, but it doesn't appear that they do. There's either service to self or service to others. Those that are service to self are like the Greys or the Draco-reptilians that have been here for quite a while, that view us very contemptuously, that have a world control agenda, and are doing a lot of really bad things to the human race. They like to keep us in a state of fear. They like to keep us warring with each other. They like to keep us divided. As soon as we start having a national discussion, an international discussion about who these entities are and what they're up to, and what they're trying to do, they're going to have to leave, because it is our planet. And there are benevolent ETs, and they are in the service to others, and they are here to help. But just like the movie and the TV show Star Trek, there is such a thing as a prime directive, and they cannot and do not want to directly interfere with Earth and our politics and our progression. They will shut off nuclear warheads, and there's videos of it, quite a few testimony of military people who are working on a base, and their nuclear warheads get deactivated. They run outside and they see a UFO. There's even videos of a shot going off, I think it was from Vandenberg base here, and there's a video on it, and the nuclear warheads up in the air. It's just a test, of course, but a UFO comes with a beam of light, zaps it a few times, and then just renders it inoperational. So you see that there are some that are benevolent and some that are malevolent. It's the ones who are malevolent that we need to become aware of, and their abilities to manipulate humans goes beyond this very limited third-dimensional reality that we know and perceive.
A lot of our future lies in this technology. If it could be unsuppressed, that it would be a different world.
Well, unfortunately, this cabal we've been speaking of are also pretty heavy-handed players in the aerospace. The Germans were going on all kinds of expeditions in the 1930s, very similar to the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. They were looking for archaeological treasures. Himmler was obsessed with it. Hitler was obsessed with it. Then you've got 45, and obviously the war is over, and Bormann certainly just disappears. We were bringing in the scientists on our own through Project Paperclip. We were bringing in Werner von Braun, some of his scientists. Then you've got people in the intelligence departments who are helping to set up the CIA. And then you have Admiral Byrd going on an expedition down to Antarctica, supposedly a scientific expedition, but with Navy SEALs, with an armada of ships, with planes, with a submarine, with an aircraft carrier. And they were confronted, and there are witnesses, and there was a sunken destroyer by a craft that came out of the ocean, which was very much like a UFO, that took out one of the ships. They didn't go full battle, but just enough to show them a lesson. And it's presumed that the Nazis did get down there, and they did bring their most valuable toys, like the UFOs that they were working on were never found. The CIA, which was created around that time in 47, which incidentally was also the Roswell crash, tie together. That the secret government tied into the Fourth Reich. But of course, all the World War II era Nazis have died of old age.
Sure.
Reinhard Gehlen was the top general who was spying on the East. I mean, this guy should have been in the Nuremberg trials. He was a war criminal, and he comes here to set up the CIA with the Dulles brothers. And truly, the definition of fascism is tying together government and industry and money. And then you have this program to backward engineer high technology. We have this advanced technology. We are already working on these crafts that can basically go to outer space within minutes. I mean, why do you think that there's nothing after the space shuttle? It's just ridiculous that the most powerful nation on the planet should just, we're giving up on that. Yeah, space. We don't have the money for it. You know, we got money to blow up Iraq, but we can't finance that. It's just ludicrous. Werner von Braun, he was obsessed with the whole Star Wars and weaponization of space, and told Carol Rosen that the final ruse would be an attack from aliens. And, you know, look at the way that Hollywood seeds us with this notion that if E.T. is going to visit us, the first thing they're going to do is blow up our cities and try to take us by force. You know, Richard Nixon famously said in the 70s, the American people won't believe anything until they see it on television.
There's a photo in the book, and I had never seen it before, but it's from one of the meetings at the Bohemian Grove, and I think it's Glenn Seaborg of the AEC is standing up speaking to this group, and on one side of him is future President Ronald Reagan, and on the other side of him is future President Richard Nixon. What do you make of that photo?
What do I think of the Bohemian Grove? Here's just another ritualistic type of secret society that it's been around for over 100 years. They do it every summer. There's protests now, thankfully. I should try to join it this summer. And, you know, every year they do this thing called the cremation of care. And they get all these globalists and politicians, very much who's who, so similar to a Bilderberger type meeting. And they all gather, and there's rumors of prostitutes coming in, gay and women, you know, drinking, debauchery. It's almost all men. And then they do this cremation of care ceremony. I mean, come on. Really? Do you hate the human race that much that you all have to do this kind of ritual and burning in front of an owl in a little lagoon? I mean, it's just pathetic, really. We know that the top oligarchs, such as David Rockefeller, attends the Bilderberger meetings. Henry Kissinger goes. People like Tony Blair, heads of state, either in power or still very influential. So we know that these people are gathering behind closed doors, making very big geopolitical decisions, and are accountable to no one. These silly, unnecessary wars that now we know 10 years of the anniversary was just last week, 10 years after the Iraq war started, completely fabricated, misinformed the public. No reason we needed to go in Iraq. There was no threat against our national security. Why are these people not prosecuted? Why are they still free? I'm just waiting for the next false flag to come around, because I think that's the next move they're going to make. They're going to make some big move to try to consolidate all the geopolitical power into their New World Order government. Well, I do have a chapter in the Utopia section called The End of Money, and I do believe that's the perfect way to just pull the rug out from the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and just end their reign of terror on the human race. Where are the people with a heart? Don't they care? Do some people care? Or then you get people like Bill Gates, where it looks like, okay, I'm going to eradicate polio. But then he makes these slips that the plan is to eliminate 10 or 15% of the population with vaccines. So who knows? You know, are you doing things for the good, or are you doing things for eugenics? I mean, look at the audacity of these people. They're just saying, we're going to do whatever we want, and you can't do anything about it. The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are merely captains and lieutenants. They're not the generals. The generals are these malevolent ETs. The Greys are just merely taking their marching orders from these Draco reptilians. Anti-gravity. free energy, time and space travel. Think about the repercussions of that. It is such a game changer. So to keep this stuff under wraps, we've been lied to and manipulated so much, and the level of trust has come down to such a low level. I mean, what does Congress have, 9% approval rating right now? That people just can't believe them anymore. So we're going to have to make this transition to complete transparency if government is even going to have a chance at holding any credibility with the people anymore. Again, we need to pull the rug from out underneath these people, and my best way of doing it is the end of money. And this may seem like a pretty fantastic notion to your listeners, but if you think about it, what do we really need money for anyways? Just to get the things we need in life. But if we could get rid of money, then these power brokers, this cabal, is suddenly powerless. And how empowered would the human race be then? Dr. Imato in Japan did these studies with water molecules, and there were hateful, spiteful thoughts, and the molecules were all chaotic and ugly looking. And then people meditated and thought beautiful thoughts and compassionate thoughts, and the molecules were beautiful. By being a good person and doing good things in the world, of course, good things will happen to you in return. I do believe that the laws of karma are a true cosmic universal law.
These are the same peoples, the same families that have made fortunes in the slave trade, the opium trade. They financed Hitler, Mussolini, financed the Bolsheviks. They financed the Hessian troops that came to this country and fought 7 of my great-grandfathers who fought in the American Revolution. Okay? They killed Garfield, McKinley, Lincoln, JFK, shot George Wallace, killed RFK, killed MLK, invented the Gulf of Tonkin incident, all for what? For themselves. For themselves.
It's just one crime after another. But since they own a large portion of the mainstream media, you're not going to hear about their crimes on Nightly Business Report. You're not going to know what this gentleman just said, and it is one giant pyramid scheme racket. And I say we pull the carpet out from underneath these guys.
It's been stated that the United States actually has a base on the moon. Satan is a reptilian and part of the Draco organization.
But I do have a whole chapter on structures on other planets, so I would agree with the caller on the other 2 points, which is the base on Moon, possibly a base on Mars, and I think Satan and Lucifer are the reptilian ETs that have been manipulating humankind for centuries.
In the Bible, it speaks in Revelation about that there's going to be a one world currency and there will be no money. So, even though it was what will be the destruction and downfall of the Rockefellers and Bilderberger Group and all that, it will also kind of usher us in, which a lot of people think is going towards the end times.
We're meant to start hearing the rollout of the RFID chips implanted in people.
I'm deeply bothered by the whole surveillance state, the lack of privacy, where all that's heading. It seems like everywhere has cameras. They track you wherever you go. People